Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. We really appreciate it. And we are joined today by an actor and director with credits that span nearly 25 years. He's known for roles in Scary Movie, The Faculty, Meet the Parents, and House of Wax. Mr. John Abrahams. Thank you so much for joining us, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me today.
To start off almost all of our interviews, we always just like to ask, what got you into acting, man?
Well, it's sort of a long story. I'll try to make it short for y'all. Uh, I was always interested in working in films. My dad was a animator and a music video director when I was a kid, and he still teaches animation. And he used to take me to all kinds of movies that I shouldn't have seen at a really young age, like Creep Show was the first movie I ever saw, or
Oh, wow.
one of the first movies I saw in like a theater. And I was really obsessed with horror movies, and so I kind of, was interested in working in film, but not as an actor. I wanted to do special effects, like makeup effects and stuff. And I was pretty serious about it. I used to go to conventions and tried to work for like Tom Savini and, met Dick Smith and all the legends. And then when I got to high school, I took a film class and I was like really into that. And I started taking an improv class. And, that really opened my eyes to acting. But I didn't want to do it professionally. And the summer of my junior year of high school, I got picked off the street to be in a movie called Kids,
Right.
which which is
I remember
which
that
is
movie.
a
Yeah.
yeah, and that was a movie about and starring a whole bunch of non-actors that I grew up with, and sort of about our lives growing up in downtown New York City in the 90s. And so I kind of like got the opportunity to be in that movie, and still wasn't thinking, oh, this is what I'm going to do with my life. I just thought, well, this is cool. I get to work on a movie, and it's a cool thing to do, and all that. And then Kids came out and was sort of a big deal, which we had no idea it would be, when we were making it. And it was like on the cover of all these magazines. It was a whole hype about it, and out of that, an agent saw me in it and called me up and was like, hey, I think you could have a career. Is this something you want to do? And I was like, no, thanks. And I hung up the phone. And then, he called back and he was like, look, I'm the real deal. Like, why don't you meet me in a crowded hotel lobby? And, I did. And he sort of, made me see that like, this is an opportunity I should try to take up. So I did. And, shortly after that, I booked a part in Dead Man Walking, playing Sean Penn's brother with me and a young Jack Black. And that's where I really was like, oh, you know what, this is, I really like this, and I should keep trying to do this. And so, that's where I found myself. And now I'm here 25 years later talking to the Don't Go Out There podcast.
Yeah, I watched Kids way too young, I think, for the subject matter in that movie for sure. And that's definitely one of those movies that has stuck with me over the years, no doubt, because I watched it in middle school, and that was, kind of when you're coming of age, and that movie was pretty hardcore.
Oh yeah, for sure. Super hardcore. And, man, I mean, I wasn't, the movie was NC-17 when it came
Yeah.
out, and I was 16 when we made it. And I was 17 when it came out. And, so I was young, and I'm not sure, it affected me. I knew it was a substantial film and, had something to say, but I'm not sure that I was even old enough to like really be affected by it. It wasn't until, 5 or 6 years later that I rewatched the movie one night by myself, and I was like just so affected by it because I had gained those years in age and perspective.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
early on in your career, you booked what's become, such a cult classic movie with a star-studded cast in The Faculty.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, and also that's got one of the top two horror movie soundtracks in my opinion, and it's not number two.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's see. So, I remember I went to audition for it, and I think it was for Elijah Wood's role.
Okay.
And I kind of knew, like, I'm not right for this, but like I said, I'm a horror movie fanatic, and like, obviously, Robert Rodriguez is just the coolest, and I was like, I really want to be in this movie, and so I went and auditioned for Robert Rodriguez and Mary Vernew, who was casting it, and I did the audition, and then I was like, hey, I just want to tell you, like, if you don't like me for this role, like, could I maybe play the fuck you boy?
Yeah.
and I think like he really got a kick out of somebody asking for like what is, maybe 2 lines in the movie, and wanting to do that. And so he was like, yeah. And so like, that's how I ended up in the movie. And then, I think it was a similar story for Summer Phoenix, who's the fuck you girl.
Yeah.
And yeah, and we met on that movie, and like she's one of my best friends to this day. I see her all the time. We she's one of my really good friends. So like a lot of amazing things came out of that. And then past that, it's a small community when you're like an actor and you're in the mix and stuff. And so like I knew a lot of people that were working on the movie. When I got there, I already knew a lot of folks, and it was just like that kind of atmosphere. It was like a lot of people that you just knew were like about to blow up. And yeah, I mean, I was just in heaven. Like I think KNB did the effects for it, and there was just all kinds of things that for me personally were like amazing to be part of.
Right, for sure. And we got to talk about Scary Movie. I mean, hell, that was such a huge hit for you, and you played one of the main roles, in Bobby in that movie. And I'm sure you're tired of talking about that, but could you touch a little bit on that role and the audition process you went through for that?
Yeah, for sure. So so well, I should just start by saying that like the Wayans brothers like were everything to me when I was in junior high school. Like In Living Color was
Same.
everything, and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker was like one of my favorite movies ever. It still is. And so I was just a super fan, and I was making a movie called Texas Rangers for
Yes.
Miramax.
With James Vanderbeek was in there, right?
Yeah, it's got a cast of thousands. It's got James
Yes,
Vanderbeek, Ashton Kutcher, Usher,
Scott Kane.
Yeah, so many. Robert Patrick is in it, Alfred Molina, Tom Skerritt. We could go on. And so they were making that movie, and I was on set in Canada, and we were there forever. And I had been in a movie recently for Miramax called Outside Providence. Mm-hmm. And I think Miramax, like, they knew me because I grew up in Tribeca, and Miramax was in Tribeca at the time. And like, they knew me as this kind of neighborhood kid who was coming in for all these movies and was now in Dimension, did Faculty. And so, they kind of knew me. And Outside Providence was about to come out, and they really liked me in Outside Providence. And so they kind of cornered me on set one day and were like, hey, we're making this movie with the Wayans brothers, and we think you should be you should play this part. And they kind of like cornered me and were like, you have to do it. And I was like, I don't understand why you're like, of course, like, why would I say no to that?
Right.
But I guess like, I guess there were a lot of like hot, young male Hollywood actors that, had turned it down and, whatever. But, I was not one of those. I was like, what? You want me to go where? Like, I'll do anything to work for the Wayans brothers, And,
right.
And so I went in. I had to fly to LA and audition for Keenan. And, I just like geeked out when I got there. I was like, you have no idea. Like, I'm Gonna Get You Suckers, my favorite movie, and, all this stuff. And they're also all from they're from downtown Manhattan too. They're from Chelsea, and like, so we kind of hit it off on that front, and then there you go. And then I worked on that as Bobby, and I still work with those guys all the time. Like it's been an amazing partnership and collaboration, thing that's grown out of that movie for the last 20 years, so I'm forever thankful for those dudes. I mean, I'll do anything. They want me to paint a house, I'll paint a house,
John, I want to ask you about one of my personal favorite movies, House of Wax. We actually just got
Yeah.
finished reviewing that recently, and funny enough, we're actually going to be reviewing The Faculty and Scary Movie pretty soon. Can you talk about
Awesome.
your role as Dalton, if you don't mind, in that whole experience? That's another one that's become a kind of a cult classic in a short amount of time. I really
Yeah.
like the movie, man.
Yeah. It's a really good movie, and I think like there was a funny time frame where like the studios were redoing, remaking a lot of the classics, and
Yep.
there's like two groupings that came out of that, right? Like there's the stuff that Joel Silver did from his company, like House of Wax and House on Haunted Hill and Ghost Ship and all those.
Right.
And
right.
then right after that, you have like the remakes of Texas Chainsaw and Nightmare on Elm Street and, all those.
Right.
And, the latter of which I really didn't think they did justice to those franchises. But I do think what Joel Silver did with a lot of the like William Castle horror films was really great. Like he really took those and made them more and made them better, and not better but just different. He really improved upon them, and in a way. And so that's what that's how House of Wax came. Well, it came about because I can't remember. I somehow I got offered the part, and then I remember talking to Jama Sara, who directed it, who's a good friend of mine and an amazing director. And,
Yeah.
I remember him being like, again, it's sort of this thing where like my whole career, I've kind of always been a guy who is more interested in being a character actor than a leading man. And it was another situation where I think Jama was like, you're kind of overqualified to play Dalton, and I was like, I don't care, I want to do it, and so then that's how that came about. And I remember like doing a lot of I'm sort of OCD about certain things, and I really wanted to try to control that character, at least his aesthetic, as much as I could, because I was like concerned about that. And I remember I put together like this 50-page lookbook of like references for the character and sent it to them, and they were like, why did you send us this? Like, you didn't have to do all that work, but yeah, and that was amazing. Like, I mean, we shot that in Australia, and they built that entire town. They built it in the middle of the jungle in Australia,
wow.
to look like a town in Louisiana. So, you had like these proper sets, that were like fully dressed and everything that you could walk into. And then, on top of that, we had like 3 full sound stages that were fully dressed, and you had like everything was made out of wax, and like I just remember like behind the scenes there were like these massive giant cauldrons of paraffin wax just constantly boiling, so that the production designers could build these sets and build the the props and all that stuff.
Wow.
So it was it was a big show, and we were in Australia for a long time, and it was cool as a cucumber. I mean, it's really neat having worked on horror movies that have no budget, and having worked on a few that have big budgets. It's always interesting to see see a horror movie with a sort of indispensable budget, like just so much money thrown behind it. It's pretty amazing. The detail that they're able to do is just incredible.
Right.
Did
Right.
Jared
Yeah.
Padalecki ever forgive you for what you did to his face?
Well, I didn't do it to his face. I was trying to save him, so I think I'm good on that one. You know, yeah. Whether
That's
he
one of
forgave Brian, yeah, whether he forgave Brian Van Holt or not, I don't know.
yeah, that was one of the most cringeworthy scenes. Just watching you peel his face off and the tears running down his face. I love
Yeah,
that scene. I think it's
yeah,
awesome. And I wanted to
yeah. It's
just shout
class.
out or the director too, because I love Orphan as well, and he did a great job in Orphan as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's amazingly talented, and I think House of Wax was his first movie. I think before that he had just done commercial stuff, and then he went on to make a ton of good movies, and I've worked for him again on Nonstop a few years back with Liam Neeson,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's made he continues to work. I mean, most recently I think he did Jungle Cruise for Disney, which with The
Disney.
Rock, which should be coming out any day. But I call him like the new Hitchcock because he's really really good with suspense. He just is, and he has a special eye for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Shifting gears a little bit, can you talk to us a little bit about this movie Clover? It looks to me like it's a throwback crime film, and that you produced this, you directed it, and you acted in it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, man, I'd love to. You know, like I said, I always wanted to work in film, and I think more than acting, I kind of always wanted to direct, and that's because like I have interests in lots of different things, in all the arts, music and visual arts, and obviously film and acting and stuff, and so directing kind of encompasses all of those things. And so about 6 years ago, my best friend is a cinematographer, and he sort of gave me the nudge. I think I was kind of fearful to jump into the directing seat, and he kind of gave me the nudge and pushed me to get into that. And so we made a film 5 years ago called All at Once, and then Clover we made after that. And Clover just came out April 3rd. It was actually, I think we might be one of the first movies that came out during COVID.
Right.
Which is kind of bittersweet for us because, we were due out in theaters. We were going to be in 11 theaters nationwide, and we had to end up just going straight to VOD. But yeah, Clover is, Clover's interesting. It is a throwback crime film, sort of along the lines of like a Elmore Leonard-ish story. But it also, for me, like I was able to apply a lot of my horror inspirations and also like kind of comic book inspirations, so it's sort of a crime story, throwback crime story, but told through a slight sort of horrific graphic novel lens,
Awesome.
and that's kind of how I treated it. And, we have an amazing cast on that. We got Ron Perlman. I'm sure y'all know Ron Perlman from Hellboy and so many other things, and Chaz Palminteri and Erica Christensen and Julia Jones, who's on The Mandalorian, and Nicole Elizabeth Berger plays Clover, and Mark Webber, who's been at it as long as I have, and there's a talented director in his own right. So it's and it goes on and on. Jessica Zor. I mean, there's a big cast, and we're real proud of it. I really wanted to make an homage to kind of all those sort of culty movies that I grew up with,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
John, you brought up the movie All at Once. It's another movie that you were producer, director, actor on. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that? From what I know, it's about your character kind of taking guardianship of his best friend's children after 9/11. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, All at Once was my first directorial feature, and it came out in 2016. And I think it's available on Amazon right now, and I think Tubi might be carrying it currently. But yeah, it's the movie that I took the step into directing on, and it really set me on my current path, which is focusing more on directing now. And yeah, I mean, it's a little different. It's not a culty film in any sense, but it is a sort of homage to movies I grew up with that I loved, like, the John Hughes movies. And, it deals with a young artist who adopts his best friend's children when his best friends pass away on 9/11. But it takes place 10 years after. And, it's sort of dealing with this guy who, has kind of given away everything to raise these children that are not his own. And, at this point in time, one of them is a kind of troubled teen and the other one is a younger piano prodigy. And, I'm real happy with that film. It really has a lot of heart, and that's kind of what I set out to make, was a movie with heart, and show kind of like a non-traditional, realistic view of family life, in America. So yeah, definitely check that one out too, if y'all are interested.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say that it really did seem like it had a lot of heart to it, and was definitely a different pace from some of the roles that you've taken on in the past. So it really, it was very intriguing, and I would encourage anybody to go check that out too.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of dramedy. I like working in that sort of hybrid medium, because I just think, life is like that. Life is both funny and, and intense all the time. And, I think, like, if there was any correlation to be drawn between All at Once and Clover, it's that they're both dramedies. I mean, Clover is a crime comedy. I call it a crimedy, which I've trademarked. I've trademarked that, so don't try to steal it.
Trademark.
And
Trademark.
yeah. And so I like working in that kind of that place and in that rhythm,
Yeah, I mean, and you touched on this a little bit earlier, with 2020's kind of halted, all kinds of productions all over the country and the world, really. But, how's that really affected your work on some of the projects you've been doing this year?
Well, I mean, like I said, Clover was about to come out in theaters, and we were about to have our premiere the day that lockdown started. So, that was a bitter pill to swallow, because, I am from the generation that, like, I make movies, you want them to be on the big screen. Absolutely. And, we were finally going to get a chance to have, a movie on the big screen. And obviously, we had to surrender that and just release it on VOD. So, that's affected me greatly in that sense. And, it's been, I made it as an homage to cult films, and, cult films, at least for me, I've rarely discovered on the big screen. I discover them in, like, some dirty, dusty VHS or whatever. So, like, in that sense, I think, like, it's kind of cool for Clover because it's out there and it's there to be discovered, and, hopefully it gains some sort of, like, cult, viewership and likes over the course of time. But, so the whole COVID thing definitely affected me as a filmmaker very specifically, in the sense that I released probably one of the first movies to come out during lockdown. And, past that, I directed another movie last year, which will be coming out in the next year, called Exploited. And that's a kind of, that's a horror film. It's an erotic horror film that takes place on a college campus. And everybody, all your listeners should be on the lookout for Exploited. But, I was basically finishing post on the film when lockdown started. And so that delayed a bunch of stuff. And, I had to end up kind of doing all my final sound mixes and score and everything during lockdown, virtually, which was an interesting experience. I can't say it was all that bad for me, because, surprisingly, like, doing a sound mix virtually wasn't so bad. Doing it in headphones, it still felt like an intimate relationship between me as the director and the sound designer, and the sound mixer. But yeah, so, those are two ways that making films during this time has directly affected me. And then past that, man, fucking, excuse my language, production has, like, halted. I mean, it's been at a halt. So, like, now it's starting to kind of seemingly pick up for me in the sense that, like, you know, there seems to be more production happening, but yeah, you know, man, like, you know, it's anybody's guess when production will get back to normal. And so that affects me greatly, right? Because I don't have another job right now, you know.
Well, it's definitely interesting in the fact that, you know, direct to video or video on demand is not at all the death sentence that it used to be. I mean, people are, almost everybody, especially nowadays, kind of in the same boat, and everybody's consuming just material just constantly online, and just Amazon and Tubi, like you brought up, and just everything. So you may find a whole new life on VOD.
Exactly. And you know, sorry if I didn't say that. Like, I don't, you know, like, obviously I'm from a generation that, like, you know, I think of movies first as being on a big screen. However, you know, like, we released All at Once very successfully on VOD, and, you know, it's had a really nice life there. And, you know, I think that, like, the new sort of equalized playing field of releasing independent films, you know, straight to streaming or VOD, you know, I think it's just that. Like, I think it gives a lot more filmmakers an opportunity where they might not have had them before. And, like, I think that's a beautiful thing, you know, because, yeah, like you said, you can end up getting, you know, I mean, you're not getting the viewers from the theatrical. You're getting the viewers from the online presence of the film, and that's forever. One way or another, that's going to be forever, because if it gets bootlegged, it's going to be out there forever in whatever fashion. So, you know, you as an independent filmmaker are able to get, I don't know how many more views than you would theatrically. So yeah, that's a blessing. You know, that's definitely a great thing about all this, I think.
Absolutely.
And then past that, you know, yeah, and then past that, you know, it's like, I came up as a mainly independent film guy, and, like, you know, that's sort of transitioned now to streaming television. I really think a lot of streaming television is really what independent film used to be. And so I've been trying to kind of move into television directing and creating and stuff like that. And so I'm sort of putting my focuses on that. I've been shadowing on some shows, you know, obviously before lockdown, and trying to crack away at directing episodic television, because I think there's a lot of interesting stuff to be done there, you know?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Speaking, you know, of video on demand, it looks like Black Hearted Killer has just recently come out on Amazon Prime. Can you tell us a little bit about that, man?
Yeah, sure. So Black Hearted Killer was made last year, and it came out on Lifetime, I think, first. And it's a kind of great, you know, Lifetime thriller kind of vibe. This couple has a daughter who dies in a car accident, and a woman shows up saying she's the recipient of our daughter's heart as a donation. And we start to figure out that this woman isn't telling all the truth, and that there's more to the story. So, you know, it's a kind of great by the numbers thriller. I mean, and that's another thing is, like, you know, I think if you like these kind of culty thrillers, there's a lot of, like, interesting spaces where they exist now where they didn't used to exist. Like, a lot of the time, a lot of these movies on Lifetime, you know, are really good, like, kind of small by the number thrillers, you know. They're fun, and they get interesting filmmakers to make them. Black Hearted Killer was directed by Roxy Shee, and she's a really interesting filmmaker. You guys should check her out. She's done a lot of cool stuff, and you know, in the genre. And yeah, I think you're seeing a lot of cool people, like, work in genre stuff in those facets. So that's why I wanted to do it, you know. And yeah, it's cool. It's on Amazon now, so y'all can go check out Black Hearted Killer after you watch Clover and after you watch All at Once, of course.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I mean, you've kind of touched on some of the stuff, but I mean, is there anything else on the docket for John Abrahams you'd like to tell our audience about?
Well, I mean, you know, look out for Exploited. Like I said, that should be coming out next year. And you know, if y'all are horror movie fanatics, this will not disappoint. It's got everything. It's got a mass killer and college kids getting slashed and, you know, all that jazz.
What more could you want? What more?
Exactly. And then, yeah, you know, no, I'm just trying to push Clover right now and, you know, and figure out my next thing. I'm working on a television show idea right now that I'm trying to develop, and we'll see what happens. But if I can plug my social medias, you mentioned Cameo, and that's how y'all found me, which is so rad.
Right.
But so y'all can find me on Cameo, and if you want shout outs or whatever, let me know through there. And then follow me on Instagram at The Real John Abrahams, at The Real John Abrahams. That's JONABRAHAMS. Give me a follow, and I'll keep you updated with all my newest endeavors.
Hey, awesome, man. You just you took my last question if you wanted to plug your Cameo or socials. But John, if you don't mind me asking one more thing before we let you go, you said you grew up a diehard horror fan, so I'm curious.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part of horror? Slashers, the thrillers, the like Insidious, Conjuring kind of stuff, or
Yeah, well, you know, okay, so I'm real into like creature effects and makeup effects and, you know, special effects in that sense. And so I was really into like a lot of the gore stuff. But like movies that I just loved when I was a kid, I loved Reanimator. I loved Return of the Living Dead, which is a kind of interesting hybrid film. It's got a bit of comedy in it, and it makes it really frightening. I loved Return of the Living Dead. I love the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I just think that's a perfect film. I don't see how you can really top it. You know, I liked a lot of the Italian zombie films, and I love Dario Argento and like a lot of the Italian horror stuff I was really into. And then, you know, anything with creature effects. Like I said, I love the Creepshow franchise and like, you know, what is it, Puppet Master and like,
right.
You know, all that kind of Pumpkinhead and like, you know, all that stuff. I used to watch that shit all the time, man.
Awesome.
Yeah, Puppet Master.
Yeah.
I can never get that leech, the leech puppet out of my head. That one was terrifying.
Yep. For sure. And, you know, and so many more, you know, and then obviously moving into sci-fi and stuff like that, like, you know, big Star Wars fan and, you know, all that stuff. Anything with like really great practical makeup effects, I was super into, you know.
Oh yeah, I was going to
blood,
say, I bet you love The Thing.
Yeah, love The Thing, and love John Carpenter, obviously, and you know, so Clive Barker, Nightbreed, love Hellraiser, you know, all those kind of like early 90s horror films, man. I was like all about it. I'm trying to think of like stuff I've seen recently that I'm digging, but I'm kind of drawing a blank. I'm trying to think like what horror movies I've seen recently. Well, I mean, A Quiet Place, I just think is a near perfect horror film. I love
that movie. I love that too.
I mean, that movie is just perfectly executed in almost every way. I just loved it. So there's good stuff. I mean, you know, and then obviously there's all this indie horror stuff, and there's so much of it, man. It's just awesome. You know, it's awesome that genre continues to speak to so many. You know.
Absolutely, John. I just want to say, on behalf of me and Brian, thank you for joining us on the show today. You are awesome. You had a lot of good insight, and we'll make sure we plug your Cameo, your Instagram, and we'll shout your movies out, man. So thank you for joining us, brother.
Hey, man, thank you so much for having me. Really, I'm flattered to be here, and hold on one sec. Yeah, I'm flattered to be here, and you know, let me know when this is going to come out so I can post it on my social and big up you guys. All right.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, I'll probably get this posted to our YouTube tonight or tomorrow, and Brian will have the podcast ready in no time. Brian's the man.
You got it. Well, y'all send me what you want to send me, and I'll post about it.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks, fellas. Happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, be safe, man.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Don't go out there.
That's right.
Peace, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.